Hello, this is Alex Ross and we're in my studio in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire, and I'm going to show you how I made Dreams. So originally Dreams started out as a bootleg that I did of the Gabrielle version. It was working really well in my sets, and Ministry heard it and said, we like this, we want to jump on this. So they basically sent me away again to work on it some more and get it up to scratch, because obviously being a bootleg and me not really expecting it to do much originally meant that I'd kind of rushed it quite a lot. So I came back to the studio, loaded up the project, remade parts that I'd used from the string a cappella, because it had quite a loud string on the a cappella that I used of Gabrielle's vocal. And yeah, basically this is how I came about it. So I scrapped all of the drums that I'd originally used and then just started building from there. So if I look at the main drop where the drums come in, we've got like a these are the drums. Plenty of fills in there, and I've got the so the kick originally, I think I can't remember where I got the kick from on that one. I think, yeah, just some sample pack that I found. Nice, punchy, heavyweight kick. Not any processing really. It had an LFO on there, but I think I took that off because it wasn't really doing anything. It's got an EQ on it. It's very minor tweaks on there. Literally probably not doing much at all. Then I have, if I just solo the kick on its own. So that's the main kick on its own, and then when it gets to the end of the 16, so I've just got another kick under there, a really short one just for more attack, and then a high cut kick every 16. That's just literally taking the bottom end off, and it sounds like just to give a bit of variation. Know you're coming into another part of the track really. If we go into some more of the drums, we have the a clap that I've obviously bounced down from another project there. No processing on the actual channel, which I do tend to do. I don't tend to bus a lot of stuff normally. I think with this I took an exception. I usually just try and max out my CPU and process on every channel, just so I can automate all the different effects and processing per channel, so I can get the track doing exactly what I want it to do. Because I think when you start using buses and stuff, a lot of other things are routed into there, and you start altering effects on the bus, and it affects other things. And if your computer can handle it, me personally, I run all my effects per channel and not on the buses. Stuff that I'm not going to automate, always bus that. But anything that I'm thinking of automating, reverb, delays, stuff like that, I won't, or filters, I won't put on the buses. I'll do them per channel. So the claps are just literally yeah, just 808s, 909s. I think these 4 claps, and then yeah, just literally layered up. So we have a 909 clap there, another clap as well, just layered up. I don't even think they're not even panned. Oh, that one's panned slightly, a bit of reverb on that one. So yeah, so this is the clap, and dry is a little bit too dry. So I just put a Logic PT verb on there, and 2 second reverb time, and it just added a little bit of bit more of a tail to it. which with everything else going on in the mix, like the finger snaps and the hi-hats that I think have got a bit of reverb on there, it just made everything gel together a little bit more. So it worked with the mix a lot better. So yeah, four layers of claps. Same again on the fourth clap, a little bit of reverb. And then on the drum bus, in fact I'll come back to that because I'll go through the other drums. Loops, I've got a tambourine and click loop, which I'm sure most of your listeners may have heard from a few various popular sample packs that seem to be going around. So there's that running in there. I've got that high cut because there was a lot of stuff in the low end that I didn't really need at all. So just literally cut it about 1K. So we've got that running in there. Tom loops. This comes in on the second part when Logic starts playing. So that just gives it a bit more of a, like a reggaeton kind of vibe, which seems to be quite popular at the moment, and it just gives a bit more of a groove to the drums with it being offbeat. And that is literally running in Oxford, the Oxford transient designer. So that's just pushing the attack a little bit at the front, and that's pretty much it, just to give it a bit more punch, a bit more attack in the mix. I've boosted the low mid just to, you can hear if I play it before. So that's before. It's quite muddy and it's not cutting through in the mix as much. So just by adding the transient mod, it adds that click at the beginning of the sample that wasn't even there before. So you can pull, rather than layer stuff up and add clicks to sounds, you can pretty much pull a click out of a sound if you use a transient designer, which you can get. There's one in Logic, Oxford do one. I'm sure various other companies do them as well. And then, like I said, just boosted the low end on the tom. So yeah, that's there's various other perks and stuff in there. So a nice little shuffly, I don't know, like hi-hat kind of shaker. Same again, just cut that down, take the low end out of that, and then all together, if we so that's it pretty much all together. And there's a few offbeat claps coming on the second phrase, so you can hear the little tush tush off clap coming in on the second phrase of the drop, so they're coming there. Again, just adding a bit of rhythm to the drums. And on these claps is a layer of 3. I think they've got an EQ on there. If I just unfreeze those. So they've got an EQ in there, just dipping in the low mids and the highs, because it was just unnecessary. I tend to listen to a sample, as I'm sure most people know, take out the stuff that's not even heard, especially when you're playing the sample on its own. You'll find, oh, it sounds fine, and then you play it in the mix and it still sounds fine. But what you want to do is play it in the mix and then start trying to chip away at it and see how much you can get away with getting rid of the sample. Because on its own it might sound thin, but in the mix it might sound perfect. So always chip away at your samples and even instruments as well, and get rid of the frequencies that you don't need in the mix, so not on their own. And then, yeah, away you go. So we've got that one. That's just just running a compressor on that clap. So it's just the. I'll just solo that on its own. So on this clap, it's just compressing to 5 dB. And I've just put the makeup gain up there, so compressing 8:1 ratio, which is quite high, but I wanted it to be quite snappy. Always turn the auto gain off, gain up everything back yourself, so that when you turn the compressor on and off, there's no actual volume change. It's just the same volume as it was before, but it's compressed, and it's a kind of a hard thing to get your head around it. But when you realize how compressors work, you understand how they work with samples and in the mix and stuff like that. So definitely try learn how a compressor works. When you're using a compressor, make sure it's not adding any gain, it's just compressing, and then you use your makeup gain here just to push the volume of what you've compressed back up. So yeah, that's running on that, and then it's bussed out to the drum bus. I think it's bussed out to a reverb bus as well. So all these claps, so we've got that one, and that one. They just literally go to a reverb bus there, so I'll get rid of the compressor and that. These go to a reverb bus. I've just got a Lexicon reverb running, medium play, and then I just play with the mix and just get it to where I want it to be. So if we listen dry, very dry. Added a reverb medium plate on there. I cut it, did a high pass to 275 hertz just to take off any of the bottom mud that's not needed, and then added a 40% mix. So I wouldn't have even specifically chosen that number, just literally drag it up and play with it till you get it somewhere where you want it to be. So that's that, and that, like I said, that's running on the first layer of the offbeat clap, the second layer of the offbeat clap, another one EQ'd, taken down the same, another one there, same again, just not cut it as much, and then all together they just seem to cut through and help each other cut through in the mix as well. That's the main thing I've learned in the last few years about music production is if you can find similar samples but not the same and layer them up, it just makes them a lot thicker in the mix, and they help each other come through. So if you've got a sound, a clap or a snap or a snare, just layer other snares with them, play with the volumes, get them all complementing each other right, and then when you play them all together they should punch through a lot easier. It's a lot better than compressing one sample, adding gain to one sample, EQing one sample, and trying to get that one sample on its own to come through, because it'll just sound weak on its own when it's smashing 3 samples at once through the same processing. It's just there, it's thicker, a lot thicker. So yeah, that's the offbeat claps, and like I said, all the drums are pretty self-explanatory. We've got the shaker in there, got this weird effects thing. So this is really just, it's like it's just filling in the silence in between the drums, and all it is this. So it's just a very basic, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a rim shot with loads of delays on it, or like a click, and that just runs through, obviously quantized to the track. Got the good old wood click. All these things, you probably hear Dreams as a track all as one thing, and you will not hear all these things on their own until you know they're there. I even forget what I've put in there when I listen back, but as you're building your drums, just keep adding little parts to it and just make it interesting, because as a listener, people hear the same thing over and over again and they just get bored and think, I already know what's coming here. So I think do random things in there. So I think, is it four bars in, we've got a little drum fill here, just literally, and in there with everything else, it just makes it more interesting. The fills are, I think when they were recorded in, they was already affected, so I haven't really done any effects on there. They do run to the drum bus, which I'll explain in a second. Couple more effects things. We've got this whip as well. Every 8 bars. Simple, and on its own doesn't sound like much, but it definitely adds to the percussion. Another one there. So as far as drums, that's pretty much it. When we get to the build up here, I've got a reverse clap come in. So if we just go to that. So all I've done there is I've recorded a clap, thrown a clap sample in there, affected it with reverb. And there's plenty of tutorials online on how to do this. Just Google or YouTube how to do reverse claps. Reverse cymbals are quite good as well for lead-ins to a drop or something changing in the track. Affect it with reverb, bounce it out as audio, bring it back into your project, and then just reverse the audio, and there you go, it's pretty much done. So that's all I did. Affected the clap with reverb, brought it back in there, reversed it, and then on the actual reverse I've then added a tape delay. So that just means after obviously it comes in, it just repeats a few times, and a simple reverb. Again, nothing fancy, just literally Logic reverbs, which are just as good in my opinion as any any other third-party reverb. Just depends what I'm feeling at the time. So like I said before this, it just sounded like, so it was very very abrupt stop to it. So by adding the reverb and the delay, it just meant that the sample carries on into the next phrase a little bit better. So yeah, that leads into the snare roll. So the snares are just this snare here, which I actually think is a cheeky little snare roll that I might have just used as is, got from a sample pack somewhere. And what I've done is I've taken another snare. I think I pitched that one down slightly. Let me just double check. So you have this first snare roll. That runs into its own bus, and on there I've just got a bit of EQ pushing the very highs, and I've also got the Brainworks stereo maker, just expanding the stereo a little bit just to make it a little bit wider as well, layered with another one that runs to the original reverb bus, and together they sound a little bit fatter. So because that's running quite thick into the reverb, it has a bit of a different sound, and it doesn't phase with the first version. So yeah, once the snares have been affected, and obviously, like I said, I tend to mix as I go along. I think that is crucial. A lot of producers throw everything in there, creates a big mess, and then you're left thinking, what do I need to do to get it sounding better? I think as you're rolling with your loop, so I would start with, let me just move to the drop. I'd have the kick running. Then I'd bring in the claps. And as these are rolling, I would constantly be affecting the volumes, affecting the compression, the reverb that I've got in there. And I just start introducing different things. So there's the open hi-hat. And I'm just constantly checking the levels and making sure nothing's coming out too much, nothing's hidden away. And obviously every time you add something, make sure there's a reason why you're adding it. If you add something in there and you can't hear it, there's probably no point in it even being there. Then we've got the little shuffle hat. That's it's quite a nice sample. That if I just show you that one, that's just literally a hat that's got a little bit of delay on it, so it's, you can just hear the next instance of it coming in, but then it stops. That's literally running a bit crusher. I'm not sure it's doing anything on that. No, I didn't end up doing it. I did crush it with a bit crusher to make it more prominent, but then realised I didn't even need it and haven't taken it off. Again, EQ, standard things really. So yeah, I'd start with a kick. My organisation is very poor, so just bear with me, because whenever you're producing music, try not to focus on being neat. Just get your idea down, because the moment you forget what your idea was because you've been too busy cleaning stuff up or renaming stuff or colouring it. I mean, if you can see on my project, everything's the same frigging colour. Do you know what I mean? So even I struggle to remember what stuff is until I listen back. But I would rather that than rename, colour everything, and then forget what I was even doing in the first place, because that's how the mind works. So don't confuse yourself with it being organised. Just throw everything in, mix as you go along, make sure everything complements each other, make sure you can hear each individual sample that you're putting in. Otherwise, don't put it in the first place. And yeah, so then I'd add the tambourine in. The tambourine, again, it's gone dark because I've frozen the tracks just to help Logic run a little bit better. All I've done again is high cut, added a boost there. Don't even know why I've done that. It probably just sounded right in the mix. And then we've got the Fab Filter multiband. So what I noticed with this sample was the tambourine was very very harsh on your ears in the top end. Like it has like a resonance in there somewhere up there. I couldn't quite work out where it was. That was just annoying my ears, and I could hear it, and it was cutting through more than the rest of the tambourine. So you could just hear this really high pitched like squeal every now and again. And the tambourine, I was having to turn down the overall tambourine just because of that little frequency annoying my ears. So instead, I threw on a Fab Filter multiband compressor, and it's just compressing the whole lot at the top there, and it's only affecting that frequency rather than the whole sample, which means the bottom end of the frequency can breathe then and come through higher as the top's pushed down. So that's basically what that's doing. Going back to adding drums, so we've got to the tambourine. Then I would add in another little shaker tambourine. And then on the second 16, we have a ride. So that's hitting on every beat, and that's literally, again, EQ'd massively. Again, that'll probably be in a frequency that was really cutting through. What I'll do is I'll play it before and after. So before any of the effects on this, for instance, the ride sounded. So the ride, you can hear, has got quite a big click to it every time it's struck. And it was too much. So the first thing I did was load up the EQ. Let's just get rid of these from before. So the first thing I did was load up the EQ, and again, high cut everything that was unneeded. The click must have been in this region here because I've massively dipped it. So if I pull that back out, you can just about hear there's a little click. So again, pulled it down massively. A lot of the top end wasn't needed, it was too much. And as I'm running, I don't know if I've got it on here, but I always run, he says, but it's not even there. Usually, I always run the Voxengo span, and that's like a analyzer. And if I show you in the Logic one, there we are. something like this is perfect. And as you're running with your mix, you can see if anything's coming too high. I always reference back to an analyzer, just so, because your ears get tired as you're producing. You think something isn't loud enough, so you start pushing it, and then someone else will come listen and go, why is that hi-hat so loud? Because you've been hearing it over and over again as you've been producing. It becomes too, what's the word? It's too, when your brain hears certain sounds, it kind of dumbs them down after a while, and by you not realizing this, you tend to push stuff up. So just always check an analyzer, and as everything's running, you can see if you've got too used to hearing a sound and it's kicking out far too much. So always run an analyzer with everything, obviously on the entire mix, so you can see nothing's really kicking out massively in there. So yeah, that's the ride. Where were we? After the EQ, I've run a compressor again, same as the claps. Compress it, push your threshold down, just so it's getting to, just so it's pushing the tops down, bringing the bottoms up, and then your makeup gain. Always add your makeup gain yourself. And you can see the input gain was -17, the output's -15. So as long as it's somewhere in there and you're not adding too much gain, that's fine. Reverb was then added to it, and gain probably just to bring, nope, the gain's not used. I might have automated the gain. So yeah. Yeah, so if I solo these again, constantly running through, adding more parts. So those are the claps now coming from earlier. The tambourine and the click loop coming in, tom drum. The little shaker. And then all the weird effects and the little snare fills and the yeah, the wood clicks. So yeah, it just keeps it interesting. As soon as you've got your drums pretty much there, what I would tend to do is I wouldn't produce a full track of drums and breakdowns and everything. You just get your main body. So that's what I'd work on, is the drop. I'd get my main body of drums ready, and then I would start to spread the drums out across the track, take out the kick for the breakdowns, check out the hi-hats and stuff, and just work with each individual sample. So you've got a palette of samples that are going to be used in the entire track. And then just take them out in different parts and start introducing effects and stuff to blend in between. Let me start the offbeat clap as well, so that's in there as well now. So that's the drums all working in harmony. So once all your drums are in there, I've sent them all to a bus. Now I don't send the kick there, so the kick has its own drum bus here, and it's just literally got a fab filter limiter running on that. That is just pushing the gain of that kick, if I can solo it. It's just literally pushing it in. I've added a bit of gain, so, but rather than adding gain, it's just, it doesn't sound any louder to you or me. But what it's doing is the limiter is acting like a very harsh compressor. So it's pushing the tops down, clipping it. The volume's not getting any louder. It's just a lot more punchier, and that's all that's doing there. Really slow attack to let the click of the kick come through. So we don't want to affect that too much. We just literally want to chop the top off the kick, and that's all it's doing, as you can see. So the kick runs separately. That then goes to a full drums bus, which is everything. So that's when the kick's reintroduced to the drums that I'm going to show you now. So if we unsolo the kick, all of the drums, the claps, the hi-hats, the perks, the tambourine shuffles and everything all go through to this drum bus, apart from the loops. Yeah, so drums are affected separately to the kick and the loops because they're kind of already affected, so they don't need any more. On the drum bus, the first thing that I've run is a reverb. So if I take that off, it's an Oxford reverb. In fact, let me take everything off. So yeah, the first thing that I've run to is the reverb. There's also an EQ, there it is, yeah. So the reverb, and all that's doing is, some of the samples are not affected by reverb as of yet. So what I've done is I've just added reverb to the overall bus, and it's a very, very short reverb as well. Where is it? Yeah, 0.2 seconds, so it's really short, and all that's doing actually is adding width rather than an actual hall reverb or anything like that. It's not a massive reverb tail at all, it's a very short one. Then we run into a Chris Lord-Alge CLA, sorry, no it's not, what am I on about? It's a CLA 2A, usually uses a vocal compressor, but I'm using it on a bus track because why not? You know what I mean? If it sounds good. And that's, again, like the Logic compressor, you can use a Logic compressor, you can use any other compressor. The CLA 2A isn't specifically special at anything that any of the others aren't. It just has, it's just good at what it does. It just does the same thing, really. So I'm just pushing 2 dB back on the compressor. But it adds like, it is adding a little bit of volume, but it's also adding like a bit of grit to the overall sound, a bit like a bit crusher would as well. So we've got that running. Then we have an EQ. So on these drums there's no kick, so we're taking everything out below 100 Hertz. A nice slow dip, nothing too excessive. Then we have a bit crusher, so this is going to clip all the drums. So without it, like I say, minor things you won't even, in fact you can hear that, it's very soft. So the drums without this bit crusher are very, very soft. By adding a bit crusher, it just makes everything grittier. It takes the tops off of the samples, and it really, yeah, grit is the only way to describe a bit crusher. It just adds that grit and makes everything a little bit harsher. So that's on there. Again, stereo widener by Brainworks. Push this out massively, so we've got quite a lot of width running. It's 179%. That's just going to push your drums out at the top ends wider. So yeah, once the drums have all been affected separately, they then join back up with the kick and the loops, and the snare and the hi-hats, and they all come to this drum bus here where I've got an SSL compressor. This is my favourite SSL. There's the other channel strip one that I don't really like because I just think there's far too many knobs and buttons in there and it gets confusing. This one, literally, you affect the threshold, you affect the makeup gain, attack and release, what ratio you want to run at, and it just, I've actually got this on UAD as well. I must not have had it when I made Dreams because I went out and bought it for UAD because it's just a quality piece of kit, and all it's doing is just gluing the track together. Just like I said, tiny bit of compression. Without it, you, like I said to you or me, you're probably not going to notice a lot. But it just makes it feel like the loops and the snares and the kick and everything is just working together, and it's one drum track rather than loads of different drums playing and they're all just being put together. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Again, another bit crusher on there that's really, I don't think I used this one. Yeah, I did. So again, you can see this time with the bit crusher, it's definitely crushing a lot more. Although the dry's not up on that, so I don't know if I use that. I might not use that. L2 not being used, and then EQ not even being used really at all. So that's the drum bus. Yep, so a lot of producers, I mean, I've watched many tutorials on computer music, on other YouTube tutorial websites. You're always learning. Like, the moment you think you know it all is the more you couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I'm learning all the time, so I will watch other producers' videos like this and look how they do everything. And what I've noticed is a lot of producers tend to use samplers to sample the drums, so like EXS24s, Contact. You can load samples in there and everything's played by MIDI. That's all well and good, but just from when I started, because I'm self-taught in music production, I just like to see all these samples running, and I like to take them out so I know that when that kick gets to here, I know it's not there. I don't have to rely on MIDI to hope that it's not there. Like, it's just something for me, and I've always worked with audio because of that's how I started out. So when it comes to shuffle and swing, when it comes to swing, it's very hard to affect audio with swing unless you've got it in MIDI. So in terms of this track, there isn't much shuffle or swing, sorry, anyway, but I know that the loops that are running, like these, they've already got some swing in there, so I kind of rely on the loops and the shuffle hats and stuff like that to give me that swing. However, since my production now has come on a lot further, and I do run hi-hats, I do run claps and stuff in MIDI through Contact, so that I can add swing, because it is something that does make a groove a lot more interesting. So like I said, this one, there isn't any swing programmed in there, it's just literally where I've put the samples. I think with the offbeat claps and the loops, there's enough swing in there rather than affecting it myself. So yeah, once you've pretty much got your drums down, I would already at this stage be adding instruments anyway. So I never produce drums and then think, right, that's sound, I'll start adding instruments. What I'll do is I'll make a kick, a clap, a hi-hat and a cymbal, and I will then start adding instruments. So my drum tracks will be quite dry as I'm adding the instruments in. So like I said, it's about creativity and getting it down as soon as you've got the idea. If you spend an hour or two on drums before you even got your melody down that you've probably had an idea in your head about anyway, you're more likely to forget. So get a very basic drum pattern down, add your instruments in, and then start thickening everything out. Make sure you get your idea down first. I think that's key. So Dreams originally was quite M1 organ orientated, and we just, I think after doing loads of different mixes of it, I thought maybe the M1 doesn't need to be so prominent in the mix, so it was dumbed down quite a lot. And what I did was, if I just solo it, this is the M1. I do have the M1 plugin, but what I was noticing was every time the pitch of the note dropped, the organ sounded slightly different. So what I did was I just played one note, like that for instance, recorded it, and then sampled it back into the EXS24 so that no matter which key I played, they all kind of sound the same. So that was just something that we did on this one. And then if I take all the effects off, I'll just run through the organ. So we have the Vengeance compressor running on there. was all about the grit with this organ. I wanted it to be really gritty and quite MIDI rather than being top end and kind of cutting through a little bit too much. So that compressor just pushing everything back, very gritty. Then next, I've got quite a large EQ going on here, so that's really pushing the mids down because they were quite prominent in the sound and a little bit too muddy sounding. And then everything that we just pushed down with the compression before, we're then boosting back up again. Straight into a limiter. It's even introducing little clicks as well, which in the mix sounded fine, so don't worry about them too much. As long as everything in the mix sounds good, it's fine. So if samples have got like a little click to them, or they just don't sound right on their own, just try them in the mix, and if they sound fine, they sound fine. I think people rely too much on what everything looks like on screen rather than using their ears and yeah, hearing it right. So again, limiting and Brainworks stereo width. On this one, pulled it back a little bit, so it must have been a little bit too wide, and I've pulled it back just to make it a little bit more mono in the centre of the mix. To get rid of that. Back into a limiter, so again, proper crushing this sample. I've recorded it in, I'm crushing it, limiting it, crushing it, and just constantly affecting it just to make it really gritty. So again, another limiter, and you can see there how much we're taking off the top. It's really clipping this sample. Back into another EQ, pushing up the frequencies that have been affected again. So it's got a bit more wispy, a bit more airy, because after all that crushing and stuff, it takes a lot of the top end off of the sample. So you need to kind of, I'm introducing it back in, but it's not like real wisp and air. It's just forced, and that's the kind of the vibe that I'm going for. And then I've just done a massive cut on there because there must have been some frequencies coming through that I didn't want. And then delay, standard Logic delay, nothing fancy. So that's without, very dry, and it's just got a little 1/8 delay. So that's the organ. That runs into its own bus, which has got the Camel Crusher on, and again that's, so this is before, so quite soft, and then with the Camel Crusher, just got a bit of distortion running through there, through the tube distortion, loads of compression, and then not really done anything with the master. It's on the Annihilate preset, which is one of the standard presets, but I don't think it might have sounded like that. I've probably tweaked it, so just have a tweak with the different settings on there, and then like I said before and after, so it really makes the mid pop out in that. So yeah, that's the organ that runs through. I have these are really nice. If I jump to this part, so they're really clicky, almost string-like, plucky. Just a sound is not really a word to describe it, but they're definitely very plucky. I haven't got them in raw format in this because I'll have bounced them out of the old project from the bootleg, but I think all they were was either Nexus sounds that I've just tweaked. I think they're pretty much all out of Nexus on that one. They all run into their own bus here, so that's the top melody bus. I've got EQ again, really boosting 2K and around there. a Waves R compressor, just pushing it down. And by it pushing so heavily and really affecting it, you get that click which you kind of wanted, so that you can hear each strike of that pluck come in when everything else is going on. Limiter again. Just taking any frequencies that are popping up too high in the mix, just pulling them back down. Compressor. Again, pushing stuff down and bringing the whole sound up. And Nicky Romero's kickstart. So this is just a sidechain plugin. I tend to go between this one and LFO Tool. LFO Tool is really good because you've got a lot more control. But when I'm just wanting to throw something on quick and not worry about tweaking it, Nicky Romero kickstart's really good for that. Only running at 60%. And just choose one of these wavetables that you want to use. They all do different things. Obviously that one takes a long time before you'll hear the sound. But I think I went with, did I go with that one or that? I can't remember which one it was, that one. Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's just going to make it duck every time the kick hits. I think it's pretty standard now. People know how sidechain works, but if you don't, plenty of tutorials on that. And yeah, just running at 60%, so not ducking too much. Just out of the way of the kick. So yeah, that's the top melody. So yeah, on the main track, this is one of my favourite parts, and these are the pads here that come in. And these are from the original version that I did, which was, like I say, a bootleg. And all they are, I think, are just Nexus presets. Tweaked a little bit, EQ'd, compressed. I can't show you because they're obviously not in this project. I've got this one. It's like a xylophone marimba kind of instrument, really weird. Very high cut as well, for the mid. And then on top of that one, this one. And that's just on the right side. Almost kind of fluty, pan flute kind of sound. And on the left speaker, nice churchy organ coming through. So I've got this one down the middle. It's always nice to have something down the middle. And then any instruments that are kind of complementing each other, pan them left and right. These are really hard panned left and right, so they're all together sound. And because the human brain doesn't realise that when it's hearing everything at once, it knows it's wide, it knows it's full, but it can't say this sound's coming out of there and this sound's coming out of there, because when it's all playing, they just complement each other nice, and to the listener, it's going to sound really good. So that's those in there. On the drop, we have they roll through straight to the drop, where the good old M1 comes in. The top melody we have coming through as well. And then like strings coming in there as well. So really nice fantasy kind of style strings. Oh, these are actually in raw format, so I can show you these. So yeah, I was right. So that's just a plucked Nexus standard preset in there. We're compressing quite a bit on that one. Then we're going to the EQ. One thing to note that I noticed when I was, well, always learning, like I say, always learning, but especially when I was looking on how to do different techniques, nothing ever said this tip that I'm going to give you now, and that is that when you're compressing and doing EQ, always do your EQ after compression, because if you, it kind of makes sense if you already know and when you think about it. But me, for instance, I never knew which way around. I was like, do I compress first? Do I EQ first? And after it had been explained to me from a video that I saw on YouTube, it makes sense. And the thing is if you compress a sound and it's already been affected by EQ, you're just pushing all that EQ back and you're basically reversing what you've just done. So always compress your sound, then pull out the elements that you want to hear more, or like I said, push back elements that you don't want to hear as much. So for this one, I've compressed it first, then I've run into an EQ, taken all the bottom end out because it's not needed, pushed the 3 kilohertz down, and the reason for this will be that the vocal will strike there. That's where every typical vocal, especially female, kind of hits. So I didn't want it to be fighting with the vocal. So that's being pushed back, and then the top end just not needed. That runs into Ozone 5. I've got the new one now, so this is how long ago I was running Making Dreams. So nothing even going on that, so we'll skip past that. And a multi-band compressor, so again 2 kilohertz. What that'll be doing is every time it hits in that area, that especially with it being quite a striking pluck sound, it's just pushing it down every time. So it's a little bit like compression, but rather than affecting the whole sound, it's just affecting that frequency. And yeah, making room for the vocal. So there's 3 instances of this. These the top one, this one, so more like a bell sound. Same processing, just a different sound. And then something that's a lot more, it's less prominent in the mix, it's more like a wet reverby sound. It's still a pluck, but it's that wet that you don't hear the initial hit, it's just filling out. And when they're all working in unison together, like I say, 2 of them pan left, pan right, not as harsh this time as before, and 1 down the middle, and they all just work together. And yeah, plenty of delay. The delay will be in Nexus, so in Nexus you've got these effects tabs here. It's got a whole reverb on there, just not too much, and then a delay, ping pong delay. And like I said, everyone's like, oh, what, using presets, blah blah. If you find a preset that works in your track really well, use it. Like, no one's gonna, you know, shame you for doing it. That's what Nexus is for. That's what it was made for. And because you can't edit the sounds as much, it does make it quite constricting. But like I said, if you come across a sound that works perfect, use it. And if you don't, use a different plugin that you can make the sound that you're looking for in. So that's the top melody running in there. Then we have the piano. So this comes in. This is something that I wanted to be quite prominent in the track because I'm a massive piano house fan. This was recorded in on the original bootleg. So we have 2 instances of this. That runs into the drop, and then on the middle 8 it comes out, and then on the last drop it comes in. So in terms of structure, there's no M1 piano on the first drop or on the build up. It comes in on the second drop again to add a little bit of difference so that the listener doesn't get bored. And it also just fills it out more, it makes it more exciting because, you know, it's the last drop of the track, everyone's excited, everyone's putting their hands in the air. So, you know, it's just something extra in there. Again, already recorded in M1, it's just a standard M1. 2 instances of it, one will be a different kind of sound. So yeah, that's quite heavily high cut. And the second one, different M1 setting and a lot more honky tonk kind of children's kind of piano, but together they just work really well together. They both go to a piano bus, that's been affected there. High cut, nice boost around 2K, because that's obviously where your pianos shine through. Into a UAD 1176 compressor. Again, you can use a Logic one, there's no difference with that. Nicky Romero sidechain, so that's going to dip on the kicks, and a little bit of stereo width in Brainworks. So where are we at? Let's have a listen. So yeah, just skipped over the bass. So we have the bass in here. That's why I'm talking weird in here. The bass is loads of layers. So we've got this one. This comes in on this. Yeah, that's it. Here we go. Just move to the drop. So really straightforward bass. I think that was a preset as well, and I can't remember what that was done in, but it's just got the very low end, like the sub of the bass in the track, and I've just put a limiter on it just to drive it a little bit harder. Just an L1, Waves L1. It's frozen, so I can't. There we go. Waves L1, really crushing it. So the threshold is really driven, and that's going to take away a bit of your sub, but it's going to add all those harmonics that are in there and really crush it. And then just brought the ceiling down because I don't want it to get louder in volume, I just want to crush it. So that's the first layer. They run into their own submix, so their own bus. I'll come back to that in a sec. Then we have this synth as well, this bass synth. That was a massive one, made him massive, and just EQ on there just to push the highs. That runs into the bass submix as well, taking all of the actual sub off of there because you don't need two subs, one sub, and then you can layer your basses as well. And this one's entitled Another Bass, so it's more like a donk kind of bass, quite high cut, that's running in there, and all together then they just complement each other really well. So nice and strong. So yeah, layer bass like you layer instruments, just don't layer your subs because you can't have more than one sub really. If you can, there will be a way, but it's going to be really scientific and not even worth the hassle. Just stay with one sub, layer basses. Then we have the bass pads that come in as well. They pretty much run through the entire track, so on the first breakdown they're in there. No, they're not. I'm sure they do come in. Oh, there we go. So as it gets to the build-up, they come in there. Sorry, they come in on the drop. I'm thinking of the re-edit that I did and I put them on the build-up. And then after the drop, they come in there as well. So that's the second verse. They're in there. Again, you might not specifically hear them, but I'll tell you what, if I take them out, you can definitely notice something's missing. There's like a very subtle kind of mid-frequency and it just seems quite weak, and with them in there it's just filling it out big time. So yeah, that's the bass. Come back to vocals because there's something I want to talk about with those. Another layer of piano there been recorded in, some stabs, They come from, it'll have been either Contact or Silent Form Massive or something like that. I think the Contact, because they sound like really realistic live strings. Contact's really good for that because it's all recorded live strings rather than synthetic. And all I've done with those is, again, compressed, straightforward, pretty much just repeating myself from before. CLA 2A on there. Brought them in because they must have been quite wide with the Brainworks. EQ, dipping at 500 just to take that mud out, but leaving this area in because sometimes when you take an area out, it's nice to add it in a bit lower down just to keep the body there but take out too much of the mud. And then, yeah, just a bit of a boost up there where the really high end of the strings hitting. Yeah, so that's the strings. What else have we got? Another string stab there, another string stab there. A Moog pad. So that'll be most likely recorded from the Moog. This is really crazy EQ, this one, so really pushing up. Just take the, there we go. So shitloads of EQ there. Because if you listen quite loud, you can hear the crackle from when it's been recorded. So I've really pushed the high end because I really want that crackle and like noise to come through. So without it, it sounds too clean to me, and you know I wanted a bit more grit in there. Sidechain, just pushing it down when the kick comes in, and then another EQ, just taking out all the low end and a little bit of the high end, basic stuff. So all together they sound really, really nice. Really euphoric and nice sounding. We've got a guitar in there. I don't think you can hear this much in there. It's a very like Skrillex kind of guitar, and it just adds tension as you're coming up to the drop. So that was in there. Marimba, again, this is just another bounce of the earlier plucks. Very dry. And another one there. So they are very hard panned, as you can see. One's very hard panned left, one's very hard panned right. So they just fill it out a little bit more. Some more string layers in there, really subtle. Yeah, so that's just before the drop at each phrase. It was on the original a cappella, so I liked it, so I kept that in there and just recreated it. Weird ass synth copy. Just a tension builder. That's all it is, and then it just has a delay on this one coming back out of it. So it's all these little sounds in there, like I say, you won't notice them in the whole mix, but they are there, and without them it'd just be a lot more boring. Another layer of an organ there, don't really need to go into that much. And then straight into the effects. So there's quite a lot of effects, I'm not going to lie, on Dreams. So it's just literally stuff like your crashes, just been affected with delays and reverbs, standard stuff. So a really long crash and then straight into like a whip. It's a different sample. So yeah, just a really long crash. Another crash here that I think, yeah, got from a Cashmere pack. So yeah, so that's really pan left, hard left. Another big crash again. So there's like three crash cymbals. Like 3 crash cymbals, a nice high one. That's just been affected with EQ, taking all the bottom end off because it wasn't needed, and a little bit of reverb. They all go into another bus, crash Crasher's bus compressed, so they all get nicely glued together. Just before the drop, I've got a crash reverb. So again, like I did the clap earlier, the clap reverb, it's just a lead into the cymbal crash. So together, it all sounds like this, and then I'll show you what it is on its own. So again, just a lead in. Plenty of effects in there, white noise, uplifters, these really long, if I solo the effects, these really long risers. And these, I can't even remember, but I've used these in nearly every track that I've ever done. And all I know is they're called white noise. I don't know where I got them from, anything, but they are the best lead-ins I've found. So if anyone's listening on YouTube now, get this recorded in. But yeah, really good risers. Just risers, crashers, your standard stuff. Yeah, what else have we got? Some booms just on the lead in. That's really hard to hear in the mix, but that's just a little down boom. Plenty of white noise on there. Like, they're from like a Vengeance pack, so Vengeance are known for being really hard hitting, EDM kind of smashing sounds. But you know, if you just affect them in the right way, I've added loads of reverb to that one, EQ'd it nicely, and just not brought them up too much in the mix. There's no need for it to be a big, you know, Martin Garrix banging sample. You can just, if you EQ it right and use it at the right volume, even the big EDM samples can really work in a pop track. And then we've got a sine drop, so this works with that as well, with the boom. That was just recorded in literally the easiest thing to do, EXS24, your standard sine wave that's loaded straight in. I've hit a note, the root note of the track, and then just put a pitch bend on it and record that in, and that's the best kind of, you know, you don't need anything else. Laid up with the boom, it sounds perfect. So there and there. So yeah, that's pretty much the track without the vocal. So on the original version of Dreams, after I'd finished it, it still had the Gabrielle vocal on there. We got it re-sung, and Holly, the lovely Holly Partridge, did a re-sing for us. And yeah, this is what it sounded like with her on it.
Move a step closer, you know that I want you. I can tell by your eyes that you want me to. Just a question of time. I knew we'd be together and that you'd be mine. I want you here for.
So she sounded great on the track, but it wasn't. When I had the track in mind, I wanted like a certain sound, a certain tone to her voice, and that's basically when I got introduced to Dakota. She had the perfect. You just wanted to be different because Gabrielle had such a iconic sound to her voice. It was like, how can we do a cover of Dreams and remake Dreams, but not have like, you know, the same voice style. And Dakota's got such a unique voice. Like, you can tell her apart from many singers. So we got Dakota on there. She was up for it straight away. So what I'm going to do now is I'll load in the Dakota version because everything's bounced. Because you've probably seen through going through this, it doesn't agree with my computer very much because of how many channels there is on there. So what I did was bounced it all down as audio. When I'm pretty much 100% sure I'm happy with the track, I can always come back to this if there's any notes out or there's any sounds that are coming through too much and I can't affect them with the stems. I'll just come back in here, change them in this, because I know that it's all working together in this format of a mix. So I will change them in this, but then just bounce that particular sound back out, and I'll know it'll work then with my stems that I've already bounced. So I always keep a raw version of my projects, and then I keep a stems version. So we'll move on to the stems version. So like I said, once I'm pretty much happy with everything, I will bounce it to stems. So these are all my stems in there, and what I have done is just arrange them pretty much exactly how they were not changed anything. But at this stage, you can do more arrangement. I tend to mix, arrange, and everything as I go along, as I'm sure most producers do. But you can, you know, once you've bounced it to stems, you can do a lot more arrangement here. If there's, you know, you might hear like a string or something on the build-up, and you think, I want that later on. So just cut it out, put it in there. Job's a good one. So Dakota came in, recorded, and she absolutely smashed it. And this is basically the session that I used to mix in her vocals. Now, the one thing that is prominent in Dreams is this intro. And that's basically Holly's vocal. Sorry, no, that's Dakota's vocal, and the other one is Holly's vocal. And it's just pitched down. I think I used sound shifter pitch in Waves or auto tune. I can't remember which one. And yeah, threw it back in there, and I just thought it quite interesting for the lead-in. And on the top thing of that, which is this one, we used Holly's vocal. Just because I thought it had a really nice wispy, sound. So we kept that in. So we used Dakota for the lows and Holly for the highs. This is the vocal section of the track. So within the track, you can hear it's like a ooh ooh that's quite prominent. So all that is literally a sample, like an ethnic sample I found on a sample pack, and it's just literally, and that's it, and it's just really catchy. That comes in on every 4 bars throughout the track pretty much, just before the drop, in the drop. Slightly different volumes throughout. Literally a little bit of EQ, and that is it on that one. Then we have, so yeah, quite a significant sound on the track is the vocal sample that sounds like this. And I had loads of different ideas for the post-chorus on Dreams. I had an arpeggiator running, I had like a saxophone idea, and a lot of people think this is a saxophone, but it's actually just a vocal melody that has been, like I said, I don't have it in raw format, it's just the bounce that we did. And it's literally a vocal melody, pitched up in auto-tune, sampled back in, and it just it's got like that saxophone kind of sound, but obviously when you hear it on its own, it's just literally... And that runs alongside this little backing vocal here, which goes like this. Because Holly Partridge, who sang the original vocal take for me, she originally harmonised with the track, and we're going do 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 do. So what I did was just copied that with an instrument, like a plucky sound, and came up with that. And layered with that other vocal. Is that, and yeah, it's probably the most prominent part of the track, really. And all the little vocal parts, so the ooh ooh, and that one, and the main saxophone kind of sound all run into a vocal bus, and literally minimal EQ on there, literally not even worth putting on there, but it's on there. And this vocal pad here, so yeah, that's what we settled with. We settled with, hang on, Just literally a sample going woo, and it all adds to it. So yeah, that's pretty much how the vocal was done. And the strings were actually mixed in at quite a late point. So there's the intro strings, and they were in the original Gabrielle a cappella, and I really like them, so I just remade them for this, and that's. Just filtered in, slowly filter in, bit of Camel Crusher, a filter, EQ, very straightforward, 2 instances of it, and they really synthetic basic strings. So they're playing from Nexus again, just Nexus strings, like I said, 2 different instances. There's this one, really high, and then the lower one underneath them. And that comes in on the middle 8 as well. So vocal, got the lead vocal from Dakota, already sounded great from recording, and it's very simple processing. So on the lead, so if I just turn off all the processing, this is what Dakota's vocal sounded like before.
Move a step closer, you know that I want you. I can tell by your eyes that you want me to. Just a question of time.
Already tracked, already nicely in time. I didn't really have to do any editing. I've done a few little movements there just to get specific syllables in the right place, but as you can see throughout the entire thing, it's pretty much as came from them. So on the vocal channel, got a nice basic EQ, just takes out the very lows of the vocal, they're not needed. I've got a noise gate, so when you get a vocal, if it's been recorded in a studio like mine, you can hear traffic and you can hear background noises. Just put a noise gate on there, set it quite a low threshold because you don't want it to be clipping all the time. Just takes out, when it gets to nearly silent, it'll just cut it out, and then you're left with a nice clean vocal. Some people like to leave the noise in there just for a bit more grit and texture. And then we run straight into the Waves Chris Lord Alge vocals. Really great plugin for vocals. Literally not touched any of the bass, mid or compressions because it's already compressed enough. There was no need to do any more. There was no need to EQ it that much, so I left that out and left that for the final bus because I like to EQ all the vocals together. Cause EQing them separately just creates problems. Tiny bit of reverb that's built in there. So if I just solo without, it sounded like this.
Oh, you, I can tell by your eyes.
And then with,
you want me to. Just a question of time. I knew we'd be together.
A little bit of reverb, bit of delay, and a tiny bit of stereo widening just to pan it out a little bit. Then we go into the UAD Lexicon reverb, another reverb. So this is a really good reverb. And turn this one off. Obviously you just heard it.
Oh, you, I can tell by your
and then with,
eyes that you want me to. Just a question of time.
It's like a hall reverb, really subtle. Like I've turned it right down. It's not pushing much at all. Just fills out the gaps and makes it sound less karaoke. Like the worst thing you can do is put a vocal on a tune. Your tune's all mixed really nice. It's all airy and nice reverbs and delays, and you've just got a flat vocal on top of it that doesn't blend in nice. Reverb's great for blending sounds in. You know, it's pretty common sense now. So just wet up your vocal a little bit, not too much, and it'll just blend in with your track a lot easier. And then we go into the Brainworks again, one of my favourite plugins, and that's just bringing that stereo widener back down, so that it's only affecting a certain part of the vocal and not going too wide, because then it doesn't always check your mixing mono obviously as well, and just check that everything's coming through.
Oh, you, I can tell by your eyes that you want.
So that's just my mono button there, and I just check that as I'm going along. So yeah, we've got the backing vocals. They were all sent over as well. No processing on these because I just thought they sounded great as they were.
Move a step closer, you know that I want you.
And when you've got quite a wet vocal, it's nice to have a dry one layered in there as well, just to give it a bit more thickness. So I've got that running through. We've got the harmonies that she recorded as well. So these are here. Dry again.
There you want me to. I gotta say how I feel, but I know that you're real.
So they sounded great dry. There was no need to put anything on them. And then when it gets to the chorus, the drop, we've just got a stack of different backing vocals.
Dreams can come true. Look at me, babe, I'm with you. You know you got to have hope.
I think what I did with this is these two. These are the high ones.
Dreams can come true. Look at me, babe.
So that's Dakota's own recording. I'm sure it was somewhere. What I did was, I can't seem to find it, but I took the main lead vocal and I put it through auto-tune and I pitched it up a full octave and I just layered that in really subtly. It just made more thickness to the vocal again. And with the rest of the track it worked really well. I can't seem to find where it was, but I might come across it as I go through. So yeah, just really, you know, basic processing. The main amount of processing goes on the bus. So all these vocals come into this mix bus here, and the first instance is UAD Manly Massive Passive. I really like to use this preset here, and it's just in the vocal section, and it's called Bow Lead Vocal, and it really makes vocals shine. So like I said before, this is before.
You know that I want you. I can tell by your eyes.
Like you can massively notice that. It just makes it glisten, it makes it really shine through, and yeah, it's barely doing anything. It's just pushing the high frequencies, and it adds the air into the vocal that some other EQs don't seem to do very well. Then we go into a de-esser, so any S's and stuff, obviously it's pretty straightforward how they work.
You know that I want you.
You can just see it affecting any really harsh sounding S's.
Just a question of time. I knew we'd be together.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, that one. Valhalla reverb, straight into there. Bit more reverb.
Move a step closer. You know that I want you. I can tell by your eyes.
So that's just very, very subtle, adding a massive tail to the whole vocal just to thicken it up again. And then into the precision EQ. I really like this one. The Manly's good for getting crispness. This is good for getting the real punch to a vocal. It's just an EQ, but it just does something to it. And I'm just running the Dance Fox Boost preset, and it just works really well. I tend to tweak the highs because the Manly's already pushed the really high frequencies, and I think as standard this pushes to about 3 dB, and it was just a little bit too much. And that's running after the de-esser, so the de-esser is pushing it down, this is bringing it back up again, and it's not as harsh sounding. And then into the oxide tape, which I don't even really know what it does, it just makes stuff sound good. Without it, again,
I can't believe you're here, but I know that you're real. I know what I want, and baby,
it just adds some kind of harmonics to it, and it's really great. I guess it's just like analog tape machine, which is exactly what it is. So yeah, that's pretty much the vocals for Dreams. What I will say is, before T-Pain was introduced, Dakota did sing the middle 8, which went like this.
I'm not making plans for tomorrow, 'cause I live for tonight. I know I want you, baby.
But anyway, we introduced T-Pain, so this is where she comes out on that part, and I'll show you how T-Pain was done. So yeah, Dreams was pretty much ready to go with Dakota on there, and we had a final moment of brilliance where let's get T-Pain on it. So he heard the track and said, yeah, great, I definitely want to work on there. So we sent the instrumental over with Dakota on, and he recorded his middle eight and the other ad-libs, and this is what it came to. So this is the T-Pain vocal mix. What I've done is I've bounced it into, I've started arranging it around the instrumental, but this isn't how it got sent to the mix engineer. The stems from the last project with Dakota in were all bounced down, and then all I did was bounce to T-Pain stems and sent them as well. Then the mix engineer would have put them all back together. So this was just for ease of use that it was mixed in this way. And it's more about arrangement. Like I said, with the main track, I mixed the majority of that. It then went off to the mix engineer, and they do the polish and tweaks. Whereas with this, it was more about getting the structure right for where T-Pain's going to be, and because of how quickly we wanted it all to be turned around, don't worry too much on the mix. So yeah, T-Pain. So T-Pain jumped on it, and he sent us over the vocals, and everyone says, T-Pain, auto-tune, he sounds so great without it. I've only got the bounce with auto-tune because that's how the engineer had sent it. However, there's plenty of videos on YouTube, you can see he's really good at singing anyway. So yeah, this is T-Pain's section, and we've got the lead vocal here.
Hey, I don't wanna feel what it feels like to miss you, just wanna kiss you. I can dance here all night with you, it's not an issue. It'll be a nightmare if I don't see you right there, 'cause if I got you, then I got the...
So yeah, so that's all dry, and then we have the backing vocals as well. These are all sent over, just literally harmonising with his own voice.
Hey, I don't wanna feel what it feels like to miss you, just wanna kiss you. I can dance here all night with you, it's not an issue.
So it sounds amazing. So they were all sent over, just literally positioning them within the track where I want them to be. And then on the main vocal, all I did was, again, simple processing. Noise gate, that just takes out any noise in the vocal. To be fair, that were pretty good from the studio that he recorded in anyway. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him, but I'm sure it'll happen. CLA 2A, again, really great vocal compressor, just very subtly. If I just get rid of these, very, very subtle compression going on.
Hey, I don't wanna feel what it feels.
In fact, no, that's quite a lot. Quite a lot of compression going on that one. Renaissance, the Waves Renaissance compressor, just pushing down.
I don't wanna feel what it feels like to miss you, just wanna kiss.
Rather than the vocal popping out all the time, it just keeps it all in check, and it kind of just bounces along nicely, and everything's fat, in your face, and not ducking in and out, and words aren't quiet. Basically what a compressor does, but I just like the way the Renaissance does it. Auto-tune on there because I thought I could do a better job, but I couldn't, so that didn't get used. I think I was just messing around with different techniques, and that didn't get used. And then the R-channel EQ in Waves, so again, all I'm doing on that is taking out the very lows because they're not needed. And this vocal, as you can hear without this, is quite low-end poppy, so you can hear that it's quite...
I don't wanna feel what it feels like to miss you, just wanna kiss you.
You can hear the very low, so with this it just takes out a lot of that.
Hey, I don't wanna feel what it feels like to miss you.
Which is great, it just cleans up the mix massively. The REQ, again, just taking any lows off, not really doing much. Another Logic EQ this time, adding a bit of air to the top. Don't even know what that's doing, that's just chilling there. And de-esser, again, affecting the S's. This is the Logic, sorry, this is the Waves Renaissance de-esser. It doesn't matter which one you use, I use this one, I use the Fab Filter one. They all do the same thing. So again, that's just...
Miss you, just wanna kiss you. I can dance here all night.
It's not even doing anything. And then L2, not doing anything. That's just keeping everything in check in case I've added any gain anywhere. It's just not going to let it clip. It's just gonna squash it down. So that's pretty much the T-Pain vocal channel strip, really, and it sounds great as it is, and with all the backing vocals in there. The backing vocals are very dry because, like I said, it was going to get mixed by an external engineer, so I didn't want to affect anything too much. It was just the lead vocal I specifically wanted to sound great. These backing vocals do go into their own bus, where there's a little bit of EQ there. Another UAD LA2A this time, so that's just compressing slightly.
To miss you, just wanna kiss you.
It's not even doing anything.
With you, it's not an issue.
But sometimes you don't even have to do anything. So you can, because it's UAD and it's like a digital to analog converter, you get the harmonics and you get the sound without something even doing anything. I'll probably put it on there and then just not even bothered using it, but forgot to take it off. And then again, CLA, which is sick. Just because it adds.
To miss you, just wanna kiss you.
That's dry, and then with it,
with you, it's not an issue.
Just makes everything sound mint. And then a widener. So on the harmonies, because they're nice and panned and they're all left and right. Like, I don't know if you can see down they're all left and right down there. Just to be really wide, and then that just widens them even further. So yeah, in harmony, this is what they sound like.
I don't wanna feel what it feels like to miss you, just wanna kiss you. I can dance here all night with you, it's not an issue. It'll be a nightmare if I don't see you right there. Cause if I got you, then I got the proof, and I'm telling you the dream do come true.
So yeah, when we got the vocal takes from T-Pain as well, he sent us loads of ad-libs. So there's like little parts like this.
No regard, oh.
And I thought we'll throw them in different sections, and they sounded great. He also sent through these as well.
You know we got to have fun. You know we got to be strong.
So literally it's just about placement. Like I said, this project, because timing was of the essence, it was just about getting everything into the right place, making sure we're happy with it, and then let the mix engineer take care of the rest. Really, I'd mixed everything else up until this point. It was just T-Pain. It was just a quick turnaround, and it sounded great. So there wasn't really much to do. On the, is it this one? Yeah. So the ad-libs he sent over for this section here, which is the it wasn't actually how it sounds, so I just did a bit of cutting up, and yeah, if it plays.
Yeah.
So I just repeated it.
Yeah.
Just because that's how I thought it sounded good, and yeah, a few weeks later it came out, and that's it. So yeah, that's how I made Dreams, and it is now out on Spotify, Apple Music, and everywhere that you can buy music, so make sure you go grab a copy.